Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome back to your favorite weekly horoscope. This time for May 31st through June 6th of 2021. My name is Cam White. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys. Anyway, last week was a little wild. This eclipse energy is really, really intense. I'm living for it. I almost made a tweet earlier today of like, Jupiter's my time lord, and I'm just like really in this Jupiter and Pisces vibe right now. Like, I'm super feeling it. I know everyone's like really going through the whole Mercury retrograde and Mercury squaring Neptune, so I'm not on the same page of everyone, but like, I don't know, wasn't it different having that first set of eclipses with Jupiter and Pisces and Mercury and Gemini, where I don't know, it seemed like there was much more revealed. There seemed to be, in my opinion, I don't know, it seemed much more comfortable for an eclipse, but of course that's just me and my story. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with this week. We have a lot going on. Pretty much the craziness doesn't stop. Again, we had a crazy last week, but it's still going to continue this week. This is the moment I'm recording this, so whoops. We're going to go to Sunday. We're actually going to go to Monday. We start Monday, May 31st off with the moon in Aquarius. The moon's going to be in Aquarius. Pretty much applying to Mercury and Venus all day long. Monday looks great. I'm actually really excited for Monday. When we're in eclipse season and we're in that 2 weeks of, kind of like madness of craziness, the moon transits, in my opinion, are much more dramatic. The moon is, a little bit more of a thing at the moment. So, I think the moon transits in between eclipses are just really prominent. And so I think this week, watching the moon is going to be really important. But anyway, we start Monday, the moon's day, applying to Mercury and applying to Venus, where the moon in Aquarius is like pragmatic enough and, realistic enough to be able to like find a solution. The moon in Aquarius is like, okay, I need to detach from this. I need to be able to, create some type of structure or system in my head that would make sense. What idea can I, really ground myself with, that I can really, fortify myself with. And with this moon waning, decreasing in light, trining Mercury while Mercury is retrograde. Mercury is pretty much motionless at this point. Mercury's been at 24 degrees now for a minute. Venus is also here, so the moon's going to apply to Mercury and then apply to Venus. So there's this really sense of rationalizing things, I think, on Monday. Like, getting a much more clear scope. I think with the eclipses, when everything's really intense, especially that the sun is on the north node, it's so funny with the north node, everything is so turned up to, the max. It's like, when you hear distortion or when you hear like clipping in music, sometimes that's a good thing. Like there's actually a few albums I know of that clip in a lot of their songs, but it actually like goes with the sound. But that clipping is intense, right? And then the south node is like much more of a drain. Like, think of December. I mean, we were getting off of Mars retrograde, so of course I think a lot more people were tired, but the south node is really going to represent, when you're exhausted or, what you kind of have to get rid of. And when the sun's more towards the south node, there is that, pull towards, like a drain, exhaustion. But when the sun's pulled towards the north node, there's this like intensifying, right? Anyway, I think as the moon's in Aquarius waning, this is like really kind of like calming down a little bit, letting it all hit you, coming into clarity with stuff. On Sunday, when the moon was conjoining Saturn and squaring Uranus, it was kind of like, it's kind of like when you get really excited about something and you kind of have to calm yourself down a little bit, kind of like me when I do my videos, because I talk too fast and I like have to like center myself so I can say things clearly. The moon in Aquarius is really like, okay, let's see this, in a rational, serious light. The moon's going to be trining Mercury and Venus. So there's this really sense of like getting it, understanding it, seeing it in a different way. Monday looks like a great day for communication, like, and getting the point across, right? Love in Monday. Mars is also going to be trining Neptune. Now that really happened Sunday night, but I like that it kind of continues on into Monday, because I think with the Mars trine Neptune, there's this real sense of kind of like, Mars in Cancer, right? We can be leading much more, I think, with our emotions. Mars in Cancer is a little bit more hypersensitive in the sense of when we take action, it's easy to be like very emotionally impulsive. When we take action, it's much more focused on like nurturing rather than like, fighting. Like we're just kind of much more in defensive posture at the moment. But with Mars trining Neptune, there's this sense of kind of like, I don't want to say getting it right because that's like very vague, but like Neptune can distort some things, right? But Neptune can make things really idealistic, and there's a time and a place for that. And I think with Mars trining Neptune, there is a sense of like, I think romanticizing maybe a lot of like what actions that you're taking. I think idealizing a lot of the actions that you're taking. But maybe this is a good thing. Maybe, with Mars in Cancer, it's good to, really idealize like, taking actions that are much more focused on, protecting rather than like fighting things off. And I just think with Mars trine Neptune, one thing is, I guess look at what you're doing and kind of, enjoy it, romanticize it, because I think that all that's really going to do is just spark joy. But also, be careful of what with the Mars in Cancer, we're crabby, we're sensitive. Mars trining Neptune, it's like, where can you kind of be under this, like, where can you kind of check in a little bit here is what I'm trying to say. But with Mars trine Neptune, it's kind of like, it's easy to, how do I want to put this? It's easy to kind of like be emotionally impulsive. It's kind of easy to be a little bit defensive, but also look at it as like it's totally the right decision. As it's like it's the greatest, not the greatest thing ever, but like everything's rolling really smooth at this point. That's really what I wanted to say with Mars trine Neptune. It's like kind of taking weird actions in a weird way, but it's like when everything rolls out really smoothly, almost like suspiciously smooth. And I think that also coincides with the moon trining Mercury and Venus. There's like, oh, I see it in a different way. And Mars trining Neptune's like, yeah, this is a little bit weird. You kind of have to trust your gut here. Maybe, be a little bit more open to interpretation. We get to Tuesday though. And Monday night going into Tuesday, the moon is pretty much going to enter Pisces and conjoin Jupiter, where this looks like the most positive day of the week, in my opinion. I think as that moon enters Pisces and hits Jupiter, this is, if I remember right, let's actually, let me double check here. This is the first moon-Jupiter conjunction. See, a month ago, May 4th, the last moon-Jupiter conjunction we had was in Aquarius. This is the first moon-Jupiter conjunction that we have in Pisces. This is awesome. I mean, literally the moon is going to be trining Venus, literally is void for like an hour, and then enters Pisces and immediately starts to conjoin Jupiter. There's this really positive shift on Monday night going into Tuesday. I think as the moon's in Pisces conjoining Jupiter, sure, there's going to be a side where maybe we're looking at things a little too rosy. Maybe we're a little too positive or idealistic about things. But also, I think the moon conjoining Jupiter is like, it's kind of like when maybe you didn't want to go in the pool, but then you put your foot in and then you put your leg in and then you sat in the pool and now you're like, it's like it's like that feeling, or like not even the pool, like the jacuzzi. Like the moon conjoining Jupiter is like, it's okay to relax a little bit. You know what I mean? It's okay to take up the steam, let wake up and smell the coffee almost, in a sense. As the moon goes into Pisces, the other thing I wanted to really kind of hit on is that night, Tuesday night, the moon's going to be squaring the nodes. So it's like the moon goes into Pisces, hits Jupiter, where there's this sense of like, okay, where's the opportunity? Where's the abundance? What emotions are being expanded? What are you wanting to expand? What ideas, what vision are you wanting to expand? And I think the moon too, the moon is now squaring the nodes. So we're in that, closing square going into the eclipse as the moon's conjoining this Jupiter. I think there's like a change that we have like on Tuesday where it's kind of like, it's not about seeing the glass half full, right? With Pisces, you understand, like, this is what's cool about Pisces. My rare time I actually like something about Pisces. But it's like, yeah, you can see the glass half empty. That is also true. You could see the glass half full. That is also true. You can see the glass is empty, full. There's so many ways you can interpret stuff, right? And I think what Pisces is really about is about understanding that there's room for interpretation, understanding that there is, not all of our experiences are the same, but how can we kind of, make sense of it all, right? One of Jupiter's significations is integration. And I think with Pisces, it's like, with Capricorn and Aquarius, it's like, with Capricorn, it's like the rule book. And, we could have a rule book. It's not going to, everything's circumstantial. And then you have like Aquarius where it's like, it's much more of an ideal and an idea that, you try to structure with. But at the end of the day with Pisces, it's, really about treating everything moment to moment. And I think with Jupiter and Pisces, it's kind of like, there's this way of doing things. There's this way of looking at things. There is this option. There's this view. And it's really about like understanding your options, understanding that you could choose in and choose out to what options you have, right? I think Jupiter and Pisces is really like there's an opportunity here. And it's not right now. That's not right now at all. Well, I shouldn't say the rewards of that opportunity are not right now. We have to remember, we are literally just getting a sneak peek. We shouldn't even be having Jupiter and Pisces right now. This is just a sneak preview because we're lucky and we've been on good behavior. Jupiter's going to give us a sneak preview of what awesome things are going to come in 2022. If you keep faith, if you have that sense of like, okay, I'm going to be grateful for what I have. I'm literally going to have faith in what I do. I'm not going to give up that faith. I'm going to keep believing in myself. I'm going to keep believing whatever it is that you believe. Because that's what Jupiter going into Pisces is like, hey, there's room for more. You can expand into more. But we're just getting a sneak preview. And I think this moon conjoining Jupiter on Tuesday is like realizing that, tapping into that and going, oh, I don't know about you guys, but like I said earlier, I've been on this Jupiter wave. Feel very tapped into this Jupiter shit. But I really think this is where it's going to click for a lot of people, where this is like, oh, wow, I see the opportunity. I see what's to come. Jupiter's almost about to retrograde too. That's not happening yet. And we'll get to that, of course. But I just wanted to bring up how like the moon conjoins Jupiter. This is like seeing things in a big way, but then the moon pretty much will start to square the nodes where the tides really turn right after that. We go into Wednesday. We go into Wednesday. The moon is going to then pretty much really all on Wednesday, the moon's just going to be applying to Neptune and Mars. Like the moon's not actually going to get to Neptune and Mercury and Mars not until like later on Wednesday. But I think as the moon's in Pisces, after it comes off that square from the nodes and then starts to apply to Neptune, apply to a square with Mercury, apply to a trine with Mars, there is this, I think there's going to be kind of like a lot of confusion with what to do. Faith is like, trust is really hard. And something I've been really thinking a lot about is like, Jupiter, a lot of Jupiter's MO, especially like Jupiter and Pisces, is like sometimes you literally have to take a leap of faith. And like sometimes it's that leap of faith that is kind of like the test of your faith that is going to, provide the thing that you want. It's kind of like the give and take of the universe, right? If you want to, accept some gifts, sometimes you have to take a risk, right? I've been talking a little bit about risk with the Saturn-Uranus square, but I've been thinking much more about Jupiter and Pisces and about luck and about trusting and about just that's what faith is. Trusting is faith, essentially. And I think what's really hard about this is with Neptune and this Mercury retrograde, especially here on Wednesday, because a lot of shit happens on Wednesday, there's this really big test of faith. And I think also for a lot of people, when you deprogramming yourself, like those that are like in NLP or that are, just the spiritual world, better help world, all that kind of stuff. When you're deprogramming stuff, like especially around like trust and faith, or like a lot of people deal with this kind of stuff when it comes to like wealth mindset stuff. It's really hard. It's when you have like installed beliefs about something, right? Changing that programming is a lot of hard work. You could do it, but it's difficult. And I think with this moon in Pisces transit, there's this sense of like realizing like, it's like the first time, like for example, when you do something for the first time that you never thought that you could do before. And it fucks with your brain and you're like, oh, I don't deserve this. Oh, I'm not worthy of this. Oh, like, your brain tries to self-sabotage. That's what I feel like this moon in Pisces really is. It's like you're not going to compute with like this Jupiter in Pisces that like, this tide changing. There's going to be this moon in Pisces. There's a lot of room for interpretation. There's a lot of choices you can make. I think you're going to feel kind of overwhelmed. But with the moon so for one on Wednesday, there's a lot going on. So let's just break it down. The moon is going to apply to Neptune the whole day. So there is this real, as the day continues, there's this heavier and heavier sense of like confusion and uncertainty. The moon is going to be squaring Mercury the whole time after it conjoins Neptune, number one. But as it's also applying to a square with Mercury, and Mercury's, again, still at 24 degrees Gemini, hasn't moved in a minute. So we're still in the same spot, right? This is kind of like when you're overthinking something at this point, like moon and Pisces squaring Mercury retrograde, like motionless. Yeah, we're clearly overthinking something here. But also on Wednesday, also before I talk about Venus and Cancer, the moon's also going to be applying to Mars the whole day, where this to me just seems like this moon Mars trine. So like, sometimes you really have to listen to your gut. Sometimes, and not to be like protectionist, because Mars is also making its way to an opposition with Pluto here. This is kind of like, you got to do it. Mars in Cancer opposite Pluto and Capricorn's like, you got to do what you got to do, like straight the fuck up. Like, and not all actions are dignified, but sometimes like you got to do shit that is kind of uncomfortable. Like this moon in Cancer opposite Pluto. So like, you got to do what you got to do, even if it fucking sucks. But, don't worry about it. Try not to like let it get to you. But I think with this moon trining Mars on Wednesday, there's this sense of like, okay, everything's really confusing. There's a lot going on. The way that I'm programmed is, because also too, I think I don't want to take too much of a side tangent on this, but like, I feel like, well, in life, you either grow or decay, right? Like you're either literally like, because there's no such thing as stability. You're either growing or decaying. I've talked a lot about this on my channel. And the amount of growth that people have had over these past few months, though, over these past years, since like the beginning of 2020, is insane. Like you don't even have to be doing any type of personal development work to have, like, because of COVID, because of just all of the shit everyone's kind of been through, there's been a lot of growth with a lot of people, right? For some that it's also been opposite, but I've seen much more growth than I've seen negative stuff. I think like people like just literally having to like, make better choices for themselves. That's what I mean when I say growth, because I know people are going to be like, Cameron, a lot of people suffer. And I'm like, yes, a lot of people, of course, have had a lot of problems, but a lot of people have just been making better choices from that, which, shitty situation, shitty reasons, right? But it forced people to grow. You've grown now, right? We're different than where we were a few months ago, a few years ago, like back to 2019. Two completely different realities, and I feel like this moon this moon transit is really like realizing that difference, seeing like, wow, like even since last December when Jupiter was in Capricorn still, when the last eclipses were. Lots changed. And I think there's just kind of a lot of overwhelming change. And I think as Venus enters Cancer, though, I'm ready for Venus in Cancer. I love that shit. Venus is about value. Venus is about bringing things together. Venus is about, indulging. And in Cancer, this is the sensitivity. This is the emotion. This is like needs. And like Venus in Cancer trying Jupiter and Pisces is so like mushy, gushy, lovey-dovey, fucking like super nostalgic and just super intimate and close. Looks pretty great to me. I think a lot about Wednesday is really tapping into, and I know I'm kind of just really going off about Wednesday here, but like a lot of Wednesday is really tapping in, really connecting you with yourself and being, that's the thing with Neptune. It's kind of like, a lot of Neptune is like, in my opinion, a lot of this Jupiter Neptune shit is surrendering, trusting the process. It's the same thing. A lot of like, and this is why I know a lot of you are probably tired of this, but the acid analogies I always use with Neptune. if you do acid and you try to control things, you're going to have a very bad time. There's literally a sense of surrendering to the process, literally surrendering to it and be like, okay, I'm going to go through an experience and I'm going to get out of it. You're going, just like when you're in traffic, you will eventually get out of traffic. You just have to understand that time will come. And I think this moon conjoining Neptune is very like, I know that it's going to, I'm not going to try to control the situation. If you try to control the situation, it's just going to make it even worse. But then as, Venus enters Cancer, this moon in Pisces, it's like, really feel things out. How do you feel? Like, what do you want? What matters? This is this water stuff. Like, literally tap into your emotions. I don't even say that a lot. I know, because and the reason why is we also have all this Gemini stuff squaring Neptune. Like, we can't decipher. Like, not every message is meant to be deciphered. Not everything is meant to be rationalized in a sense too. I know we came off of that, on Monday with the moon in Aquarius, but like, this is really, it's like, you got to make it make sense for you, and you got to do what works best for you. And with Venus leaving Gemini and going into Cancer is like, I need to I'm going to value much more of, my internal needs. I'm going to value and put much more emphasis on protection, on nurturing, on catering, on my feelings, on not Venus and Gemini of stimulation and understanding, but of relating, of sympathizing, of literally like connecting, of sharing like an intimate space. Venus trine Jupiter is very like, I need to go, like my hot rod analogy last week, just like one of my favorite examples of like the 12th house is like that scene in Hot Rod where he's like, I need to go to my happy place. This is also kind of like that. Like, you go do what you need to do, right? You got to do what you got to do. That's like, I had someone, so I forgot what someone said to me on Twitter, but it was the same type of questioning where I'm like, a lot of people are like, oh my God. Or on my comments on like last week's video, someone was like, or maybe it was on my Twitter, I don't remember. But someone was like, I had to buy a car, and then someone was like, oh, like, you shouldn't have done that under Mercury retrograde. It's not going to be good. And it's like, well, like, this shit isn't about, like, oh, like, sometimes the Mercury retrograde signifies you having to buy a new car. Like, that doesn't mean, like, that's literally how the shit, it's not like, oh, my car broke down the day Mercury station retrograde. Heaven forbid I have to buy a new car now. It's like, no, that's clearly Mercury was trying to get you a new car. Like, there's this sense of, I would say there's a sense of, you got to really understand what's trying to push you where. And I think with a lot of this Gemini stuff, it's not about rational. It's not about, don't overthink it. Feel it out. Connect, tap in. That's the best way I could put it. Anyway, we go into Thursday. Thursday's also crazy. Because Thursday we have the moon going into Aries, making a square to Venus, where the moon in Aries is kind of like the guy that walks in and is like a little bit trying to be too funny after like a really like sensitive conversation. Like, moon in Aries is like, hey, says something like, is like, how's your, husband? And then they're like, oh no, like her husband died. And it's like, oh, whoops. Moon in Aries square in Venus in Cancer is meeting those needs might be a little hard. Like, Venus is in Cancer, right? It's in the moon's house, but the moon's in Aries, where I think the moon's going to be a little like, it's kind of like, well, I feel like as a guy, it's like, guys are funny because we're very emotional, but like we have a lot of course, walls and barriers, just like most people. But like the moon in Aries is like, you have to like, if you want to close in that intimate space with someone, you kind of have to like relax them into it, right? Like, there's no jumping into a hot tub, right? I mean, you can, no one's stopping you, but like, you usually like relax into a hot tub. And I feel like this moon in Aries squaring Venus in Cancer is like jumping into the hot tub, and maybe it's like really hot at first, and there's like this kind of like, it's a little sensitive at first. So like, again, try to ease into Thursday. The moon in Aries is gonna want to get in the pool, do this, do that. But the moon squaring Venus is kind of like, remember why you're trying to get into the jacuzzi. You're trying to get into to relax, not to have a blast. You know what I mean? Venus is also going to trine Jupiter on Thursday. here you go. This is it. Take it. This is the good transit that we got for like, I think the the Venus Mars conjunction. Not that we don't have good days, but this is like, go on a date. Tell someone how you really feel. This is, find a way to connect. Find a way, tap in, tune in. I think also to trusting, having faith. Like I was talking about with Jupiter and Pisces, Venus and Cancer. It's like, trust isn't for, like, trust is a very intimate and sacred space, right? I think Venus trining Jupiter is that there's reception with that trust, right? It's like, I think this is cool. I think this is needed. We've had a lot of earth and fire and air over the past like year. It's nice to actually have some like water, like Venus and Cancer, Jupiter and Pisces. Like that's some water energy. Like, yeah, that's fucking refreshing. That's like good. We want the benefics and water signs. The level at which you can feel something is feeling good. It's feeling safe. And I know a lot of, again, you have to understand this in context of how it's going to affect your chart, but like, fuck, I just think this is going to feel good. I got to keep moving on though. I can talk about this forever. This is just a big week. Sun's also going to be trining Saturn on Thursday. Dude, Saturn's retrograde now. We know what responsibilities we have to take on. We know what work we got to do. It's set in. It's go time. But the sun's in Gemini. We know the rule book. It's like you've studied this. You know what to do. It's just time to apply that knowledge. Let's go. Apply that shit. Like straight up. Like the sun shining Saturn is like, okay, you know this. You've done the work. Now it's game time. Do it. It's not about necessarily even like winning or losing. It's just about like, are you applying what you know? And I think with the sun on the North Node, there is this like, I got to apply what I know. I got to do this. I got to do that. There's a lot of like wanting to make hay while the sun shines, right? And I think with Saturn retrograde, trining it, it's really about what Saturn in Aquarius over this past year has really been about is like, what ideas do we, structure ourselves on, that we what ideas and what mindset do we really frame ourselves with. And that sun shining Saturn is like, it's time to put that to action. This mindset that you've been working on, this, Saturn in Capricorn was like the discipline. Saturn in Aquarius is like the mental discipline, right? Like the ideas, the values, the morals that like you structure yourself on. Saturn retrograde sun shining is like putting it to the test. Does this work? Is this going to be something that benefits you and serves you? Or, what challenges are there? But I think this is also just about applying it. Saturn and Uranus are squaring. We'll get to that, but this is just about really applying the knowledge on Thursday. Applying what you know. Again, Venus is trining Jupiter. It's like, this is that moment. You know what I mean? What have you learned? Like, here's that moment to be receptive. Here's that moment to, Mercury squaring Neptune. You're not going to know exactly what to say in that moment. I don't know what exactly to say in half these fucking horoscopes I do. I just kind of like, some of the best advice is like, if you guys are YouTubers, it's like one of the best pieces of advice you could ever get as a YouTuber is like, just literally fucking hit record. Like, it's super easy to like, want to know what you want to say and go over everything and make sure it's perfect, but like just hit record, just start talking, just go for it. Mercury square Neptune is like, not everything's going to come out perfect. But I think this is maybe a time where you can kind of trust that maybe not everything's going to be, misinterpreted. Not everything's going to be, I don't want to say not everything's going to be misinterpreted. Some things will be misinterpreted, but at the end of the day, like, that's okay. Maybe, that's for itself to work out. Anyway, we get to Friday, and really nothing's going on Friday. Just the moon's going to be in Aries, pretty much making a sextile to Saturn. So I think after it separates from Venus, there's this kind of like, okay, I need to relax a little bit, and not be so tense. The moon's going to also be on Chiron, clearly, as it applies to Saturn. So there is this kind of sense of like, okay, we're We're taking new action. We're doing things that are, I don't want to say healing, but the moon sextiling Saturn is like, again, applying that knowledge. It's different. We're not used to doing it this way. It's taking a lot of faith and trust in the process. But this is for the best. You know what I mean? This is like good. Yeah, of course eclipses are bad. And of course astrology's bad. But I kind of look at this and I'm like, there's a lot of just new things happening that I think is going to, a lot of seeds are being planted right now. This is what I was talking about earlier with Jupiter. It's like, dude, we're literally planting seeds right now. And it's like, if you're not paying attention, you could plant as many seeds as you want for stuff that's going to prosper in 2022. We're going to get an abundance of, but you got to be planting those seeds right now. And, you got to make hay while the sun shines. You can't sleep in. You can't, this is really the time to, wake up, do this shit, do something different. It's eclipse season. All that shit that you've been wanting to change in your life, but you haven't, if you're not doing it now, it's really going to be kind of difficult to make any crazy changes. That's what I love about eclipse season. That's why I made a tweet earlier this week of choose chaos before it chooses you. Cause it's kind of this is one of those times. If you want to shake it up, go for it now. This is when the stars are saying yes to that. Anyway, we get to Saturday. Saturday looks pretty fucked, honestly. This looks pretty intense. On Saturday, the moon is going to square Mars and Pluto while Mars is opposite Pluto. Now, with Mars opposite Pluto, number one, let's just talk about that for a second. Mars opposite Pluto is really panicky. Really, really panicky. Mars in Cancer opposite Pluto in Capricorn is straight up you don't need to buy a bunker for the end of the world. You don't need to buy rations for the end of the world. You don't need to buy more bullets for the end of the world. But holy fuck are you going to feel like you need to. Mars in Cancer opposite Pluto is I need to store all of my food before the world ends. And this moon in Aries squaring Mars in Cancer, it's you can't get to the fucking store fast enough. Try, especially those who have Mars as their time lord, try to keep it cool as you can. You're going to feel like you got to panic at this time. Mars in Cancer is very, there's an internal mess on the inside, right? Of what's the right decision? What's the best decision? I don't know. Again, you don't have to always make a decision. You don't always have to take action on something. I've talked about this before and it's a lot to explain, but I do want to bring it up as the best analogy I can think of. Some of you might have heard of a game called, from what I'm familiar with, is called the red-black game. It's where you separate two, it's a, group building exercise type thing where it's you separate two groups and you have team red, team black. You could either they could both vote black and they both win, or they both vote red and they both lose points. But some of you may know what I'm talking about. But in this game, the lesson of this game is that if everyone votes black, then everyone wins. If everyone votes red, everyone loses. But also that one of the stipulations is that your team can't vote for a color unless everyone has voted. And what a lot of people don't realize in this game is that you can choose not to vote. You can choose, just like in poker, you can choose to pass. You don't have to, or not poker, or fucking blackjack or whatever. You don't have to hit. You don't have to keep adding a card. You can just go, no, pass. That's how I would look at this, is maybe this isn't the best time to make a move. Look at your cards. Sure, if you're kind of looking at, again, it's a poker analogy. If you're looking around and going, you don't have to win every game. You don't have to. This moon in Aries squaring Mars is going to be you feel like you gotta, do something about something, and you don't have to do shit about stuff. You can literally you can choose not to do something. And I think this moon in Aries squaring Mars in Cancer is a great day to just not take action on it. Just straight up say, you're going to feel like you need to defend yourself. You're going to feel oh my God, I gotta, this is coming after me and this is attacking me. And, also let's not forget on Saturday, Mercury squaring Neptune. This is the big negative transit we were talking about. This This is straight up, this is the classic movie trope of like the miscommunication over like maybe like a language barrier turns into a whole fight where like, I have a story, but it would be way too much to explain. It's kind of like, you know, when you bump into someone and then it gets totally misinterpreted and it gets really bad really fast. That's what Saturday looks like. But I'm telling you, you don't have to panic. You don't. Some of you might feel like you have to really withdraw, which, you know, do what works best for you. I'm not really here to tell you. I'm just telling you what you're gonna feel like. Some of you might be like, yeah, I feel defensive, and I am gonna pop off, Cameron. I am gonna buy rations for the end of the world. Maybe do that. I don't care. All I'm saying is you're gonna feel like you're gonna be panicking. And my biggest advice is like, for one, it's Mercury squaring Neptune. Do not get it twisted. Do not like. It is totally okay to just, you know, sometimes I don't want to say I'm partially deaf. I'm a drummer, and I've worked a lot on live music with no ear protection pretty much at all, pretty much my whole life. So I have a lot of trouble hearing. And most of the time, especially during the pandemic because of the mask shit, I just let people say whatever they want because I really can't hear them anyway. I have so much more peace with that. And like, I feel, during the pandemic, I feel really bad for people who are like deaf or like have really bad like hearing problems. Cause like, I mean, mine isn't that bad, but I've been really struggling with it. But like, you know, and I'm sure the people out there that have really bad hearing problems probably relate. You're just like, yep, whatever. I didn't hear what the fuck you said. And you could have told me, you could have said the worst thing to me and I'd have been like, yeah, whatever. Moving on. I've got other things to worry about. I think with this Mars opposite Pluto, try not to take it to the extreme if you do. You know, Mars in Cancer, do what you need to do. Like, you don't have to just react and respond to every emotion, right? Like, emotions are meant to be felt, not to be acted upon. You can feel everything. Like, that's the point of, like, we didn't develop for millions of years to not use our feelings for something, but like, you have to be able to separate the actions from it. And that's what I think this is a challenge with, especially on Saturday with Mercury squaring Neptune. Not only don't get it twisted, but I think this is also a perfect opportunity now that Mercury's retrograde, and we talk about Mercury retrogrades being about revisiting, reviewing, reflecting. With Mercury squaring Neptune, how can you challenge yourself to see maybe where you might get something misconstrued, or you might misinterpret something, and check yourself. Go, am I misinterpreting that? Gain clear, like, ask people questions. If like someone says something, say, excuse me? You know what I mean? Ask for that clarity. Don't just assume shit. Because this is also like, I'm not going to lie, and I'm victim to this stuff too. This is super drinking dumb bitch juice on Saturday. Like, it's going to be really easy to not be paying attention and just let it, like, I don't know, hang in a sense. So this is a challenge to check yourself of like, okay, are you going to do something different? Can you see things in a different way? Saturday just looks fucked, in my opinion. Saturday is a challenge day. Saturday is, you know, it's going to be some hard work. But then we go into Sunday, and we pretty much end this week. On Sunday, the moon enters Taurus, and just like the rest of these fixed sign transits, the moon's going to apply to Uranus and square Saturn. So as the moon enters Taurus, this is kind of like, okay, let's get settled. It's kind of like after you get in a fight with someone and then like you go to your car and like you sit in your car for a minute. Like after you fight or get in a conflict or something, you always go somewhere and then like you have to like ground yourself there. You know what I mean? Before you do anything else. There's that transitionary moment. And I think this moon in Taurus is kind of like, all right, let's settle down as much as we can. The problem is with these moon and Taurus transits is where we're used to wanting to settle, you know, we can't be there for long. It's like, you know, you can't stay, what's that saying? You can't stay. Oh my God. I can't believe I can't think of it. You can stay here, but you can leave. You got to leave, but you can't stay here. Fuck. I forgot what it is. It's Mercury retrograde. There's a sense of urgency of like, yeah, the moon's in Taurus, get stable, get grounded, but it's on top of Uranus, it's squaring Saturn. Do something different. Don't get too settled. I think with Saturn squaring Uranus, there's this sense of like, you know, measure twice, cut once. And a lot of building things, like, you know, when you take something out of the box, a lot of people will build it on the ground first, right? To kind of see it and they can fuck with it, they can understand with it. Like Saturn squaring Uranus is like don't start pouring the cement immediately. You know what I mean? Like make sure everything's to the right dimensions. And with Saturn retrograde squaring Uranus, like there's some unpredictability here. The moon in Taurus is like, don't get too comfortable, right? Like if you're gonna get comfortable, make sure you can, because the moon conjoining Uranus squaring Saturn is like, you know, there's for one, there's a lot of unpredictability. There's a lot of destabilizing energy. But there's also this sense of like, don't overdo it. Don't move too fast. Again, the moon's in Taurus for a reason. Maybe it's time to go slow and really, you know, try to avoid any crazy mishaps. Take things one step at a time. And I just think that's hard because also the moon in Taurus wants to be comfortable, but the moon in Taurus is pressured to do a lot of changes, which Taurus is not good with changing stuff, right? So I think on Sunday is really like, okay, I guess I have to get comfortable with doing this new thing. I have to really do it. You really got to do the work. Because I think Saturday is really going to show you, I think Saturday is where that Mercury Neptune thing's going to really pop up, where you go, oh, I totally misunderstood or misinterpreted that. So I guess we'll just see how it goes. And then we get to next week. Next week, we have for one, the total solar eclipse in Gemini. That's popping it off. On that eclipse, there's also a Mercury cazimi, which is pretty rare. That's pretty fucking rare. That's going to be pretty crazy. That's pretty much one of the craziest transits of this whole year. Mars enters Leo next week, which really this is going to be a very lit summer. Mars in Leo is going to be... All right, if you thought the Aquarius energy was intense, wait till Mars enters Leo, because it is just going to be like just yelling. It's going to be a very loud summer. And then by the end of next week, Saturn squares Uranus, or I should say Uranus squares Saturn. Uranus will be applying to Saturn. So, I mean, like I said last week, dude, like here we are. Shit's going to start changing from here on out. We got a lot of... It's showtime, essentially. And I think next week, but this week is really understanding that moment. And next week is like, it kind of all pops off. It all kind of comes to a, I don't want to say a climax. Well, a climax, but like it all comes to, I don't want to say an end either, because that's not the best way to look at it. It comes to a rise. That's a good way to look at it. But with that being said, that's what I got for you guys. Thank you guys so much for being here, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I will be seeing you next week.